So as you can see, the Cobra is in the race car trailer. It's the end of the season, racing's over. I probably won't drive this car again this season. It's starting to get cold. This is not a fun car to drive when it's snowing out. So it's in the trailer probably for the next few months until I move it into the garage to do some winter upgrades this year on the engine and a couple other things that it needs for maintenance. So in the meantime, while it sits in this trailer, I have a couple of things I want to do to prepare it for temporary storage. This isn't long-term storage where I'm worried about the gas going bad or the battery. I'll leave the battery in it. It does have a disconnect, so I'll just shut that off. It's got its street tires mounted on it right now. They've got about 30 pounds in, which is a little bit more than I normally drive on. And next I want to put a cover on. But before I put the cover on, I want to make sure that it's as clean as it can be. Any dirt that is on the car that you put a cover on top of is going to get pushed around and put little scratches into your paint. This paint's pretty nice, so I want to keep it that way. So I'm going to do what I call a damp mop on this car. It's not dirty right now. That's really important to note. If this car was really dirty, I would have to take it out of the trailer. I'd have to get the hose out, soap, wash it really good, dry it off really good. That's not what we're doing right now. The car was washed. We went racing one day. It went back in the trailer at the end and it's just been sitting here. So it is clean. There's not mud on the car or real dirt or even dead bugs. But it has been sitting here exposed a little bit to the elements, even though it's in a trailer. There is airflow through here. So I want to just make sure it's as clean as I can. So this is a clean microfiber cloth right out of the bag. When I do something like this, I start with brand new fresh cloths. Make sure I have something that's as clean as it can be. After this job, this won't get thrown out. This will get dried and put in the box of pretty clean rags, not perfectly clean rags like they come out of the package. And they'll get used for something else where I don't need a spotlessly clean rag, but not yet a greasy rag. And then after that, it'll go into the dirty rag bin where it's used like for wiping up oil or cleaning funnels after an oil change. So next is to go and get some hot water. No soap. We're just using clean hot water and a clean cloth, and then we're going to wipe the car down. Lucky for me, my house has both hot and cold water outside. One of the guys that taught me about washing cars said you wouldn't wash your face or your hands in cold water. Why would you wash your car in cold water? So got hot and cold right here. If it's too hot, I can put a little cold and cool it down so I can put my hands in. I want this as hot as I can stand to put my fingers in. Got my bucket of hot water, got my cloth. On this car, I like to start up by the windshield. On any car, I generally start at the top and work down. The dirtiest parts of the car are always going to be at the bottom, and the cleanest are normally at the top. So you don't want to take dirt from the bottom and move it up onto the top. The other thing you'll see me do is I will be moving front to back, back to front. I'm not going to go in circles, and I'm not going to go side to side. And the reason is, if I do get a scratch, if I do get a little bit of grit, unfortunately, which is possible on this cloth, if I put a scratch in it, I'd rather it go front to back because that's going to match the lines of the car. If you put a scratch along here, it's not going to be nearly as noticeable as if you put a scratch across here like that. Something else you'll notice is I'm wearing a sweatshirt here. I have no buttons. I have no zippers here. This covers my belt. Oftentimes I would prefer to actually wear like sweatpants or something for a job like this so that there's no chance of me scratching with a belt. But I'll be super careful in here. I'm not going to be leaning way over the car. This car is narrow. But if I had a wider car, especially something like my big station wagon where to get to the middle of the roof you have to lean up against the car, I'd probably have on like sweatpants and a sweatshirt so that I've got no buckles or metal or fasteners on my clothes. So anyways, this is the wet mop. Dunking our water. It's just about as hot as I can stand. Wring it out as good as you can. We don't want the car wet and dripping. And then we just do that nice front to back wipe. And some of you are saying you're going to have water spots all over your car. Yes, I am. we'll come back to that. So I've done a section about 16 inches wide in the length of the hood. Rinse off. Back into the bucket. And then again. About the same. And all the time, I'm keeping an eye on my water. If the water starts to at all look dirty, I want to dump it out and get fresh water. This water at the end will probably be so clean that you could drink it. Wouldn't recommend that. But if it looks like water where you'd go, ugh, that's gross, time to get fresh water. And there's no dirt coming up on my towel. It still looks real nice and clean. That means we're doing this right. If there was dirt, if there were like brown or gray streaks on this, I would stop and take the car out and wash it in the driveway. Well, it's hot. Okay, so now that that part's done, we let the car dry. So it's going to dry over tonight. We'll do the next step tomorrow. I'll see you then. Okay, I'm back in the trailer. The car's had a chance to dry overnight from that little bit of water that was left on it from when we wiped it down yesterday. This is pretty darn clean. So the next step is to use some of the spray detailer. This is going to give it sort of a bit of a protection from the car cover. It's not as good as wax, but it's quick and easy. This car has a good coating of wax on it. So this is kind of like a touch-up for the wax. There's lots of these available. Go to your local parts store. There's all kinds of different brands. I've tried a bunch of them. All the ones I've tried have worked really well. So I'm not particular on any brand. Just find something that you like and use it consistently. You shake it up. This one you wipe on, read the instructions. Some of them you have to wipe on and then let it haze and wipe off like you would with wax. This one, it says you can just spray it on and wipe it off. But I like to use two cloths. One to wipe on and then let it sit for a minute or so and then wipe it off just to make sure I don't have an uneven coating. So like I did yesterday, I start kind of at the top or the high part of the car and I wipe front to back following the lines of the car. I will go around the wheel openings as a curve because they're curve shaped, but generally you follow the shape of the car. Also, I normally like to buy my cloths in packages that come in different colors. That way it's easier for me to keep track of which is the wipe on and which is the wipe on cloth. But these came as a good price in a big package, so I have yellow ones today. So right now I'm kind of just spreading this stuff around. Get a nice even coating of it. You don't want to spray this stuff on to the point where it like runs off or drips. You just want a nice even coating. And this is not something you want to do when the car has dust. This is not like a wash. This is sort of like touch up in between waxings. You don't start with a dirty car and go, oh, I got this bottle of spray stuff. I'll just use that. It's not super convenient working inside a trailer like this because I don't have that much space. But what is nice is I'm out of the weather and I'm out of the sun. And this is not something you want to do in a lot of sunlight because it'll dry too fast and you can't really control that. One trick that I use because this car doesn't have side windows and I don't want to get my spray on the inside of the car, is I just hold my rag, which I need to get the product on anyways, here as I spray, and that catches most of it instead of going on and getting on the seats, because I use a different product on the seats than on the outside of the car. This stuff is also good if you've got those inconsiderate people who feel the need to touch your car and get fingerprints all over it. It cleans those up really nice. So I've gone over the whole car with my first cloth, that's the wet one. Now I'm going to go over with this new clean dry one and just give it that final wipe. Make sure my belt's not showing. And then we'll be ready to put on the cover. You want to turn your cloth over regularly when you're doing something like this. That keeps you on a nice, clean, dry area of the cloth all the time. It's not a bad workout either. This is also a good time to look over your car and see if there's any areas that need any correction or repair. There's a scratch right here. It's not through the clear coat, so now I know that's there. When I go back in the house, I have a list of things I want to do to the car this winter. That's going to get put on the list, so I'll remember when it's in the garage to take some compound and correct that. The Cobra's all sparkly and shined up and clean and almost ready for the cover. I'm going to go and have a cup of coffee and let any of this spray detailer that's left on there, any residue, dry before I put the cover actually on the car, and that'll be the next step. And we're back. I don't take long breaks. So, car's all dry and clean. Next thing to do is put this tonneau cover on. This covers the cockpit. It is actually meant for 2 low back bucket seats. Since I added this racing seat, it doesn't quite cover, but it still does its job, which is to keep dust and dirt out of the interior. It also stops the car cover from falling down in there. And then we'll put the car cover on. The car cover itself is clean. I ran it through the washing machine earlier this week. If the washing machine is good enough for my clothes, it's good enough for a car cover. This one's relatively small, so it'll fit in a household washing machine. If you have a really big car cover for something like a Cadillac or like my big station wagon, that one you got to take to the laundromat and use one of their big industrial machines. So this goes on with some snaps, and then we'll throw the cover on. The other nice thing about the tonneau cover, it has a zipper down the middle. So in cool weather, you can leave it covering the passenger side of the cockpit. Just you're sitting in the driver's seat, and it keeps a little bit more heat in. Plus, you look cool like Steve McQueen or James Dean or somebody who would drive, a cool sports car when it was cold. There's a front and a back to this. But because of the shape of the Cobra and the dimensions, it's best to actually put it on backwards because the hood is so long. And when you put your cover on, you don't want to drag it across the paint. Even though the paint's clean and the car cover itself is clean, you don't want to take any chances if you have nice paint. So lift it up and make it nice and billowy. Car looks so shiny, it's a shame to cover it up. And there she is, tucked in and ready for bed. We'll have this car out in a couple of months back in the garage doing some upgrades on the engine and some maintenance. I got to fix a door handle I broke when we were drag racing. But for now, it can sleep in the trailer until it's ready to come out and play again. And look for that on a future video here on the channel. If you like this, hit the like. If you want to make sure you don't miss the next videos, hit subscribe.